Good afternoon, and welcome to Rolling with Rolland on the Ocean County News Squad and the Shore News Network. Unfortunately, last night I couldn't make the Township Council meeting. I had a late meeting in Piscataway. I stopped off at a rest area in Monmouth County because obviously I knew what was on the agenda and why I wanted to be there in the first place. As you all know, or some of you may not, but you should know, last council meeting before this one, there was an item on the agenda regarding the sale of a piece of land, approximately 1.2 acres in Silverton, the last buildable commercial area on that particular road, which also acted as a natural barrier for the residents behind it. So they blocked Hooper Avenue and they didn't see all the traffic and stuff like that. That item was tabled by Councilman Latano at the last minute, and you could tell something was off. I mean, he was nervous just by the way he did it. It almost looked like the cat who ate the canary. Like when you catch your kid in the cookie jar and you yell from the kitchen, "Hey, no more cookies." But you know, his hand's in the jar. So anyway, this particular piece of land, which is valued at about $750,000, $800,000, was auctioned off by an auction house run by a Max Spahn, who apparently is also someone that Councilman Latano has done business with prior because he's a builder who's bid on auctions with Mr. Spahn. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is why is this last buildable commercial lot in that area being put on an auction? Why is it not being handed to a broker, listed at the commensurate price, so that we can make sure we're getting the proper property values for that piece of land, being the last buildable commercial pad in that area? Further, you have to ask yourself, why is it being sold now? We're about to pay over $2 million to a property tax reevaluator who next year is going to totally reevaluate the property taxes in our town, which, according to Mayor Hill, are about 21% under where they should be. So if we were going to sell this land, why are we selling it, number one, at an auction site and risking having it go way under value? And number two, why are we selling it before we reevaluate the property taxes when next year, according to Mayor Hill's math, it would be worth 21% more? I don't know. I guess maybe you can figure it out as the story goes along, and maybe you can come to your own decisions, and hopefully that's what you're going to do. So anyhow, they had the auction. This particular auction had 3 bidders at the start. They are telling us anyway. There are screenshots that tell a different story, but we can keep going. So this auction happened, and this land was won by a high bidder somewhere in the mid 300,000s. Well, 2 days later, the winning bidder supposedly called Mr. Spahn at the auction house, and he had cold feet. You know, he was hitting that button. He got really excited, and he wanted to stop, but something, this wild spirit overtook him, and he just kept on bidding. Very interesting. Well, the property was already bidded at his high bid at more than half less the real value of the property. So I can imagine I would have been excited too if I was getting this last buildable lot at half the value of the property. Hell, I would have pounded away at the keyboard too. But apparently, mystery bidder number 1, Heinz LLC, was having a little bit of buyer's remorse. You know how it goes. You buy a new shirt, take that shirt home, and it just doesn't fit right. So you say, you know what? I don't want this shirt. Now, usually you return that shirt to where you bought it from and you get a credit or a refund. However, Mr. Spahn, being the ingenuity man that he is, he was able to broker an additional $100,000 off approximately and end up somewhere at about $255,000 for a $750,000 to $800,000 piece of property. Again, last time we discussed how much money Assemblyman McGuckin made for his $40-something thousand donations and almost $2 million in municipal contracts as a result. I mean, there's a lot of good business people here in town that apparently we have a lot to learn from because they could flip a profit like no other. I mean, drug dealers would be proud of this type of profit. But anyway, so last meeting, Councilman Latano tabled the motion. And we waited for 2 weeks, and we issued request after request to try and find out who is this Heinz LLC. I mean, there's no officers listed on the LLC paperwork with the state. It only goes back to a P.O. box in North Dover. And nobody was coming forward to claim this LLC, which, by the way, was formed 2 days after this new bid was put in. Very convenient. This man, this LLC, who was it? Who is this masked man? Well, Councilman Roderick did some digging, and he opened the P.O. box, and it turns out that Chaim Bloom, a planning board member in Lakewood Township, was the lottery winner of this property he was going to buy at less than half of its value. Now, coincidences. You know, I'm all about life's strange coincidences. Turns out, the Lakewood Planning Board member, the assemblyman we gave the $500,000 no-bid contract for that's currently going to be in litigation, well, he's the zoning board attorney in Lakewood. I wonder if at any point Mr. Bloom and Mr. McGuckin had any type of contact with one another. And I wonder if at any point Mr. Bloom and his many LLCs, which, by the way, we will list at a later date because Mr. Bloom apparently is a big fan of having multiple LLCs that do multiple different things. The problem is, this stinks. This was going to go through 2 weeks ago, sail on through in a packed agenda that no one was paying attention to, and this sale was going to go through. And then Mr. Latano got cold feet because he found out that Councilman Roderick was doing some digging, much like he did with the $500,000 no-bid contract. So in a flurried state of panic, he pulled it. Fast forward to last night, and the crap show began. From the beginning, they were defensive. They knew that they were on the ropes. Mr. Loitano came in with this prepared statement, how he was getting rid of this project because of the low price. Further, he fought to make sure that Councilman Kopp, which I'm not sure if you know who that is because he doesn't say much, he doesn't do much, and barely looks old enough to vote, but he's one of the Hill team that was brought on to just say yes to whatever goes on in our town and make sure that nothing is rocked on our town council as Mayor Hill pushes this crap through and through for our town. So anyway, they put on this show and made sure that Councilman Kopp raised his hand, seconded. And so they went to kill this motion. And all they wanted for it was to go away. Only it's not going away. Once again, if everything that is alleged is true here, we have caught the mayor and his cohorts playing games and fast and loose with the ethics and laws of our town. And it has got to stop. At what point do we say there is too many coincidences, there are too many no-bid contracts, there are too many raises for confidential employees, and these councilmen and councilwomen, meeting after meeting, rubber stamp this man's agenda and basically aid and abet him into ripping off this town? Enough is enough. This is a mayor that was elected by the smallest margin in our town's history. This is a mayor who hasn't even been in office for a year and now has an attorney general's investigation and litigation for pay to play for the various different type of shenanigans that he seems to be absolutely hell-bent on doing in our town. I'll tell you something. I've had enough. Just like they're trying to politicize this school board election, and they want to make sure both sides, every side, gets their slate in there so that they can stick their fat fingers into the $500 million school board money that floats around from our school system. Enough is enough. I've said it to you before. It's time to take back our town. It's time to get involved. You no longer have the luxury of sitting back and saying they're crooks and we get ripped off while you sit in your living room. This has to end. I'm telling you right now that Daniel Roderick can only fight this fight for so long alone. This man risks his reputation every single week. He is hostilely treated. They bombard him. It is a group effort, like a battle royal in a bad wrestling match. Someone needs to stand up and stand by him. I've done it, and it's up to the rest of you now to do it too. Because I'm going to tell you something. He's the only person in that room that fights for this town. He's the only person in this room that fights for Toms River, our town, what we believe in, and we don't want to lose. And if you don't want to lose it, it's about time you stand up. Because if you look around, this town is a disaster. North Dover is an absolute abomination. They're ripping it up at every turn. building on top of building. Mayor Hill's downtown plan calls for apartment buildings and condominiums on areas that constantly flood. Meanwhile, you got hate groups run by felons carrying the mayor's water and coming up with every excuse possible for this man's illegalities and his behavior. And it has to stop. It's time we stand with Tom's River, we stand with Councilman Roderick, and we put this crap to an end. And we leave all these people behind and remind them this is our town, not theirs. This council and this mayor is on notice. This nonsense is done. It's up. You will see us all every week. You will hear from us, and the pressure will grow. And when the time has come, Mayor Hill, you will be recalled. And councilmen, get ready for primaries. Get ready for opponents, because this party is over. Assembly McGuckin, you're next. Get ready, big guy. The party's over.